Hey guys, Marissa at KitchenTableStamper.com. Happy first day of celebration. I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. We are going to take 3 6x6 sheets of the new Day at the Farm Designer Series paper. This is free with your $50 order during celebration. We're going to cut it according to Wonder Recipe number 3. I've got 8 Sahara Sand card bases here. These are 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. We are going to turn these supplies into 8 adorable cards. Ready? Let's get started. Wonder Recipe is like a one-sheet wonder if you've ever done those before, and you can take a 6x6 sheet, cut it according to the cutting diagram, and then use the pieces to make cards. You just use up all the pieces. When you're done making cards. You can do one sheet or you can expand and do multiple sheets to make more cards. I'm going to use 3 different patterns. I'm going to cut them all into 1.5-inch squares. You're going to get 16 1.5-inch squares out of each of these sheets. And then we are going to mix them and match them and make 8 awesome thank you cards. All right, so I'm going to do 2 sheets at one time to start with. And then after I do the 2 sheets at one time, I will cut my 3rd sheet in half so that I can always be doing 2 layers at a time for this. Our Stampin' Up paper trimmer can take the 2 layers of Designer Series paper at a time without any problem at all. And then I'm just going to drop the pieces right onto the grid as I cut them up. All right, let me finish these 2 sheets. All right, we've done our first 2 sheets. I'm just popping those squares into the grid. Now we're going to do our 3rd sheet. And what I'm going to do with the 3rd sheet is I'm going to cut in half at 3. I'm going to stack, cut in half at 1.5. And now we're still making some good efficient progress in cutting our Wonder Recipe diagram, cutting 2 layers at one time. Rotate 1.5-inch squares. I'll cut this up, pop it in the grid, and then I'll show you how to use these pieces. All right, so there's the last of our vegetable paper. Just gonna pop these in the grid. All right, so we've got this beautiful paper. We've cut it into smidgens, and now we gotta make it into something better, right? So let's get our 8.5 by 5.5 card bases, and we're going to apply the Designer Series paper. Now here's the fun part. If you've got some different Designer Series paper, you can take, say, one piece and cut it according to the Wonder Recipe, and if you like both sides, then you can mix and match and kind of toggle both sides of the pieces. You can mix and match different pages and cut more and more pieces of the paper. All right, so we're going to go ahead and adhere our pieces. You can adhere these however you want to your card. You could use as many as you want on each card. You can mix and match and just have some fun with it. So I'm going to go ahead and do 6 pieces, kind of 2 cattywampus rows, 2 of each of the patterns, and I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. And I'm going to do that for all 8 of the cards. And the nice part is you can use a Designer Series paper where you love both sides. That would be a fun way to just use one piece and mix and match the pieces. You can put just 3 pieces, 1 of each pattern on each card, and get even more cards. It really is it's a great starter, the Wonder Recipe. You still get to add some of your own creativity and have a whole lot of fun, but it gives you a kickstart. You got your Designer Series paper. It's all picked out. The patterns will determine what colors that you're using, so then you can grab your cardstocks. The theme of the paper might suggest which stamp set or bundle to get started with. And once you've got the cardstock and ink colors, the stamp set or bundle, the Designer Series paper all cut, really the next thing there is to do is just add creativity, just a little bit. All right, so that's our layout for our designer series paper. I'm going to go ahead and do that for all 8 copies of the card. So the next thing we need for all 8 cards is a focal image. We're going to do ours on a stitched rectangle. I cut this one using the stitched rectangle dies, and it is E, so right in the middle size. It's about 3 9/16 by 2 1/4. All right, so I'm going to do 8 of these, 1 for each card. We're going to stamp our focal image in Memento Tuxedo Black, and we're using an amazing new stamp set, one of my favorites, the Silly Goose. And I got the Silly Goose in photopolymer. It's offered in both rubber and photopolymer, which I think is pretty awesome. But since I picked photopolymer, I'm going to go ahead and bring my Stampin' Pierce mat. And I haven't talked about the Stampin' Pierce mat in a while. The Stampin' Pierce mat is essential for getting good images, clean, crisp, complete images when you've got photopolymer stamps. So photopolymer stamps are these clear stamps, and they adhere to the clear block with static cling. But there is no cushion like a rubber stamp would have between the stamp and the block. That gray cushion isn't part of the photopolymer stamp. So we add the cushion underneath the stamp and always get phenomenal results. And while we're stamping, I'm going to grab a scrap of basic white, and we're going to stamp a sentiment for our card. So I love this Silly Goose. It's got really great sentiments. The sentiments oftentimes will sell me on a stamp set. So we got our Thanks Goose, and we're going to stamp the coordinating sending a big honkin' thanks on this scrap of basic white using cherry cobbler ink. And of course you're going to do that for all 8 cards. Let's clear away the ink pads, and we'll color our goose. We're going to do some simple coloring. I've got light pumpkin pie, dark daffodil delight, dark soft sea foam, and light smoky slate. I'm going to use a color lifter to blend a bit so we get a gray goose. And let's start there. I'm going to do light smoky slate and go down the left side of our little goose, and then down the left side of his body and around his bottom a bit. And then we're going to take the color lifter and just use little circle strokes to blend the gray so that it fades into the white. So we're going to have a goose that's really light gray, or maybe white, and we've got some shadows and some contour. Then we're going to do the wings, and I like to do the wings gray underneath the banner here. And then we'll soften up with the color lifter. But since our goose is kind of a white gray, we're going to go just up the ends of the little pinky feather there. I love that that pinky is tipped up, and underneath the fingers. And then we'll just soften our gray with the color lifter all the way along on the fingers, and they're gonna soften back to white just a little bit. That's it. That's our coloring for our goose feathers. Now let's do the beak and the feet, and I like for this combination of dark daffodil delight and light pumpkin pie. Now if you have the retired Mango Melody Stampin' Blends, I bet light and dark there would be really good to get a goosey color for feet and beaks. I did Daffodil Delight, and then I'm just going very lightly down the leg and the foot to give kind of a golden yellow, an orange, a sunshiny yellow to the feet and beak. Right along the bottom and right up against the face with the pumpkin pie, and slightly just touch them together so that they blend. And the last bit of coloring, I'm going to do the Thanks banner with the soft sea foam. And we've got a big space to fill in here, so you'll rarely see me use the brush because I have a very heavy hand and I tend to apply too much ink that way. But for a big open space like this, the brush and then doing some like feather strokes, some flicking strokes is a fast way to fill in all those banners. I think our sentiments have had some time to dry, and we're going to cut them out with the oval duo punch. Now this is from the annual catalog. It's been around for a little bit, but I don't use it nearly as enough. It's awesome for sentiments. We're gonna stamp so that sending a big honkin' thanks is centered, top to bottom, but over to the left. And of course, one sentiment for every card. And we're gonna cut the wiggly oval to mat our sentiment from some basic grit. Got a scrap here. And so we'll get an awesome layered sentiment. And the punch makes it so easy. Little liquid glue. And here, sending big honkin' thanks. You'll do all 8 of your sentiment greetings and slide aside. Let's do some die cutting. We need a couple of what I call the cardstock embellishments, right? The little bits that just really make a card special. So I got some cherry cobbler and garden green and a couple of dies. Let me show you where they came from. We've got a primitive heart die. I loved the shape of this primitive heart with the geese, and it is from the Warm Welcome dies. Then we also are going to give our goose a little bit of ground to stand on. We're going to do that using these adorable hill dies. So they're like little grassy knolls, and they have some cool textures that they cut right as you go. So one is kind of a diagonal stripe. One has little like V-shaped cutouts. All 3 hills are from this On the Farm dies. I'm gonna use my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Now, if you have ever thought about joining Stampin' Up, can I say that now is the time? For $129, you can join Stampin' Up, and your kit will include $175 of product of your choice and this little mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Now it gets even crazier. The mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine is currently available in brand new in color, the boho blue, and you get to choose the classic white like I have, or the boho blue. Now this little machine, even if you have a die cut machine, is so handy. Look at what we're doing here. We've got a 3-inch platform, and we're gonna cut all of our hills and our heart, all using this teeny little machine. I like to have this little machine right on the table next to me where I'm doing design work. It's all loaded up with the 4 dies, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna press the platforms and then crank the handle. You want to wait until the handle responds. You'll see the handle move as you push in the platform, and then give it a crank. It's a little bit different because it's a 2-handed machine. Then you shift your hands from the platforms to the top and continue cranking. It's a cutie little machine, super handy, and it's great to have right in your crafting space along with you. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and it can help you as you're designing a card and just moving right along, and you want to cut the layers or cut out the image that you just colored. It's got a I believe 3 by 6 inch platform, and it does a whole lot more cutting than it looks like it can do. I've got my little cherry cobbler heart. It's stuck in the die there. If you ever get your cut stuck in the die, you can just grab a little low tack tape and stick to the cutout and pull away. They come apart real easy. I'm going to bring my sentiment back in here for just a minute, and some linen thread, and we're going to tie a bow. I'd say it's probably about 12 inches of linen thread that I use for these big loopy bows, and we're going to use it to turn our little oval into an oval tag. So I got a loopy bow here, And I like to use mini glue dots when I do this little embellishment. I'll take my glue dot and expose one of these guys or two, and I'll put my cutout on one little mini glue dot and then my bow on the other. Let's cut away from the spool here. Got the knot of the bow on the first glue dot, the cardstock heart on the second. Lift up, I've got my glue dot. Now I've got a glue dot sandwich. It's glue dot, twine, glue dot, heart. Pick up that whole embellishment there, and we'll add it right onto our tag. And you want to do that for all 8 tags. See, by the magic of television, I've done that for all 8. Aren't they pretty? All right, side to side. And we'll go ahead and put some dimensionals on the back of some of our hills. Let me get my little Stampin' dimensionals here. I like the minis. I'm going to put some dimensional adhesive on the hill with the diagonal cuts, and I'm going to put some mini Stampin' dimensionals on the solid hill. I like 1.5. We'll do all of our hills, get them all ready to adhere to the card. All right, our hills have some adhesive. Let's slide them aside and bring back our card bases with the Designer Series paper. Got our cutie little goose. We're gonna adhere the geese to the card front, and then we'll adhere our tag using the same adhesive. Then we're going to take our little hill without adhesive, put it so that it doesn't cover our goose's feet, adhere that to the bottom. Next, we'll take the smooth hill with no cuts, and we'll add that one to the right, and then the hill with the cuts. We're going to do the same thing for the remaining 7 cards. Get all of our hills and all of our tags adhered to our geese. Here we go. We're got everybody up to the same step. Now the last thing we're going to do is embellish with some of these awesome enamel dot essentials. I'm in love with this pack. You get Night of Navy. It's really deep and gorgeous. Crumb Cake and white. They all have a pearly finish. We're going to use the crumb cake embellishments and add a little bling to our cards here. I'm going to do 3, and I'm going to use one of each size of these little enamels. Got my take your pick tool. I'll choose one of each and kind of have them cascade up from our sentiment. And that, my friends, is Wonder Recipe number 3. And we've got 8 gorgeous thank you cards to show for it. I hope that you enjoyed the Wonder Recipe. If you've got any questions, you can email Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com. And to shop Stampin' Up! 24/7, buzz over to marisaalvarez.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.